So I got one thing to end on real quick because I always do this and I throw everybody through a loop when I do it. But I want the human side of you for a second, not the business side of you. So tell us a story about a guy that you want to honor, somebody that a brother that you loved, a brother that you who gave his life for this country, somebody who taught you something of high level. Give us something meaningful that has helped you in your career.
Um, I can go. There's unfortunately there's too many brothers that I love that I lost. But my point man from my last platoon passed away. His name is Linkon Bashew, and the uh, the thing I that guy taught me a lot, and he reminded me a lot of the other people, the other guys, the other support people that we worked with in the military. He reminded me about this one trait, and the trait is that when we go to go do our jobs, nobody is doing things to try to screw up. They're trying to do their best. And one of the stories, I had a guy come in and bang on my door. We were running aircraft, UAVs, over a portion of Iraq, and I had tasked Link with going in and figuring out a route to take into this area that was north of Balad, Iraq. And it was supposedly American forces couldn't go there. Even the wrong Iraqi army couldn't even go in there. It was run by a corrupt police force. Corrupt being a very loosely used word out there, because
Yeah.
in that area, they weren't corrupt to them, to the people of that area. It was just corrupt to the government of Iraq. It's, just different opinions there. So I tasked him with getting us a route to go in, which was a big, tall task. You were lead nav. This guy was a brand new guy. He was 27 years old, brand new guy, had made his share of mistakes as a new guy. But when we got on deployment, he bloomed. And much like you saw our guys when we deployed in
Yeah.
2009 together. So he's got this aircraft flying, and I get a bang on my door from this intelligence officer. And he's banging on my door, and I open up and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he says, "One of your guys has a daytime aircraft flying at night, and we cannot have this. You guys are wasting assets." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, hold on a second." And my stomach's churning a little bit because I'm like, "Oh, somebody messed up." But I'm smart enough to know that none of our guys, none of our support people, nobody that worked with us sets out to do things incorrectly. And I got this thing in the back of my mind going, benefit of the doubt, man, benefit of the doubt. And I was like, "Hey, give me 1 second." I pull out, our devices that we could contact everybody. It's called the pager in 2011.
Yes.
So I page him, I'm like, "Hey, Link, come up to the jock." And he comes up and he doesn't know what's going on. He walks up and he says, "Hey, Chief, what's going on?" And he's kind of wiping the sleep out of his eyes. And I said, "Hey, got a daytime aircraft up flying right now, and it's nighttime, and the intel officer is really upset." And Link's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "You want to tell him why you're doing it?" And I did it. I said it like, "I know why you're doing it, but he doesn't. So explain it." And he says, "Yeah, well, that route that you had me looking at." And I was like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, it turns out that," and he names off names. "This guy over here and this guy over here, we're going to be walking right by their houses. And those are both cousins to the guy that we're going after. And if we trigger something there, he's going to let the bad guys know that we're coming. And we could be walking into a really bad situation." And we had like 30 guys on this mission. It was one of the big ones that we were able to get away with, at the time. And we also had aerial reaction force that was all special forces guys, and they were actually the bait. We were flying them in to draw all the attention away from us. So they were going to fly in and land in helicopters and then run over to us. Link says, I'm flying the aircraft because I'm trying to see the light rings from their light bulbs that they have in the backyard of this house to make sure that we're not in the light when we go by. And I look at the intel officer and I'm like, makes sense. And the guy's like, what? And he goes, light rings. And he shifts, you know, in that place, we had the ability to shift screens so that he had that aircraft's data coming down. And he, you know, there's big screens all over the room. And he says, look over here. Says, see the light rings? We're going to patrol right by there. I'm going to look at this video tomorrow and see if any other lights turn on. And then that way I can do my route, you know, about 6 or 8 feet around there. And the guy says, you're weaving 30 guys through a needle like that. And he says, yeah. And I was like, yeah, we do it all the time. We didn't do it all the time. That was the only time I ever did it, as a matter of fact. I hope that intel officer doesn't watch this video, but I said, yeah, that's how we do it, man. And he's like, whoa. And I was like, hey, please give the guys the benefit of the doubt. They know what they're doing. They're professionals. They're really good. And then Link looks at me and he goes, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, I just needed you to tell him how we do things, you know. And the guy, you know, Link takes off, and I walked over and I bang on Clay Hergert's door. I think it was Clay Hergert or Troy Deal, one of those two guys. And I said, hey, Link was flying a daytime bird at night so that he could see the light rings. And they're like, man, that's a great idea. I was like, yeah, I told him to do it. And then I started laughing, and they're like, he came up with that? And I was like, yeah, he came up with that. And the reason I told them was I wanted them to understand that this guy that was considered the mess up of the platoon, the weak link, he was not. He was actually contributing hugely. And that mission went down, and it was fantastic. We had the executive officer of the team on that mission. And wow, it went down really well. And the route that he led us through was incredible. It was like 9 kilometers, like weaving in and out of backyards in the middle of the night, getting down there. And we got in and nobody knew we were there.
Amazing.
So, yep. So I would like to honor Link. Like I'd like to honor the fact that he taught me a lesson that far into my career to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. They're not trying to do things that are messed up. Find out what they're doing before you condemn them, because it would have been very easy to come in and say, you know, to start screaming like, what are you doing? You're wasting money. You're burning assets, blah, blah, blah. You know, you've got these guys up in the middle of the night flying a bird that's ineffective. Like it took like 20 people to make that happen. But he made the call, and I gave him the authority and autonomy to do that in that environment. And I found that I've never had somebody take too much when we give them, you know, when we give them ownership of things. I've never seen that. And if they start to, then you say, hey, that's enough. That's far enough. You're doing great. But that's the line right there. And it usually works really well. People will surprise you. Your people will surprise you. And that was the lesson Link taught me inadvertently. And then I told him years later that, hey, when you did that, that was really impressive. He's like, you mean you guys didn't do it like that all the time? I was like, I'm not going to build your ego up that early in your career and ruin you.
So good.
But when he passed away, it was like all of the guys, you know, like the pain from all of them came, you know, because he was just so young and so early in his career. So yeah, that was a hard one.
Well, I never got to meet Link, but he definitely sounds like a badass, and it's an awesome story of good old fashioned team guy ingenuity, and on your part too, the leadership, you know, and I can attest that as well. You were definitely a guy who was like, here's your autonomy. You've been trained to do this job. You know what you're doing. Go do it. You know, there's no hand holding here. Like, you got it. Except I will end it on this subject. So during the time that Bryan and I were deployed together, it was Stanley Cup Finals, and I'm a big hockey guy. And we played hockey in Saddam's Palace. We got sticks. I mean, when we had time off, we were jamming out, and we started to form teams to where we were doing our Stanley Cup. And of course, we ended up building a Stanley Cup out of tinfoil and like cardboard. And just before we could actually win a Stanley Cup or do any of that stuff, it disappears. And I'm talking to everybody, and everybody's asking where it's at, and everybody's got like an honesty thing on their face, and nuts nowhere to be found. And I finally go to you and I'm like, hey, where's that Stanley Cup? And you're like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. I know you stole it, but you're not telling us. And I mean, for maybe months, we did not find it. And it was just like we gave up, and we didn't even have a Stanley Cup finals because we had no cup. And then I find it in your bathroom underneath a wooden board, and I'm like, he totally stole it. So
It's in the bathtub.
yeah, I know.